What's going on, YouTube? So back again with another video of my RSX build. Today we're going to be working in the engine bay, kind of getting everything plated in and filling all the holes. On my last video, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do as far as either plating it in actually or just filling some of the holes and making it smooth that way. I actually was doing some thinking about it, and I'm gonna plate it in. I've actually already started working on it off camera. So this is what I kind of have mocked up already. So I just took different pieces of cardboard and cut them. I mean, this wasn't very easy. This is like kind of a time consuming process here. But after everything, I'm actually pretty satisfied with how it came out. So I really just wanted to get it mocked up and see how I felt about it. I feel like I really like it. I like how that clean look, you know, it's not gonna show all these kind of just open drop-offs. You know, I'm gonna end up doing the same thing for this side, kind of doing a plate in here. I feel like this side will be a lot easier than this side. Just had a lot more going on over here. But yeah, I like how it turned out. So now we're gonna work on taking all of these off and transferring over to a piece of metal. So I drew all these arrows on here for one, for me to know after I take all of them off, to know which side is the front side and which side is facing up. So that when I do transfer it over to the metal, I can put these same arrows on it, so that it'll be easier for me to figure out exactly where each piece goes and what direction it faces in. So with all of this, I actually went on to Google and I just Googled up RSX with a shaved engine bay. And there was a picture that came up that resembled this. You know, it was kind of more of just from an angle right here. And I just kind of went off of that, and then that gave me my idea, and I just kind of ran with it, you know, kind of cutting a piece of cardboard little by little. You know, I might cut too much and have to start over and kind of transfer what I had over to another piece and leave extra room so that I can then trim it back again. But like I said, it is a time consuming, but it's really not that hard. You just really have to have the patience. And, you know, this really goes with any car. It's not even just the RSX, you know. Many cars you might want to, you know, go for that real clean look in the engine bay. And it's really just a matter of patience and knowing what you're expecting to come out. You know, if you know what you're expecting and you kind of have a general idea, you know, it's really just sitting there kind of making templates and making it all fit together nice and neat. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull these off and trace them as a template onto the metal that I have. All right, so I got all my cardboard pieces pulled off, tape pulled off of them, and I've got them all traced out, and I also transferred over the arrows onto the sheet of metal so that after I do cut it out, I'll still know which way is the front side and which way it should be facing to help me better figure out where everything goes. I've already got a couple of pieces cut out of the other templates that I've had. So I'm just using my jigsaw with a metal blade on there. It's working really well with this 16 gauge. So I'm just using my jigsaw and then clamping her down and just following the line. You just want to make sure that, you know, when you're cutting it, you know, since when I'm outlining this template, I'm outlining to the inside line. So I just want to cut right along that inside line or a little bit over. You know, you never want to go too little, but if you go a little bit over, it can always be kind of grounded down or sanded down with you know, a good old flappy disc. So on some of these longer cuts, these longer straight cuts, I actually started to use my my cutoff wheel just because it was a little bit easier than using the jigsaw for especially like these long straights, kind of like what I have right now. it's gonna be a lot easier just to use the cutoff wheel as opposed to the jigsaw whenever it's a straight. So like I'll even be able to get this one because it's just like it's straight and it kind of angles off. So I'll be able to cut both of those in this small one with the cutoff wheel, and I'll get this curve in with my jigsaw, and it'll just kind of work out a little bit better. Alright, so I got all my pieces cut out with the arrows on them and everything. Everything's good. You can see how on some of them, it still has a little bit of black on it. And the inside of that black edge was my template. So really there should be no black shown for it to match exactly what my template is. So I'm gonna go back around now with my flappy disc on my grinder and just kind of clean up those edges. I'm gonna get rid of some of it where it's just kind of sharp and like it's fraying. And I'm also going to like kind of cut this back a little bit so it'll be exactly on what my template was actually made for. All right, so I got them all sanded down now. You can see, it's nice and smooth all the way around the edges now. I also went ahead and kind of sanded on the flat surface of the plate all the way around it as well on all of them. And that's where I'm gonna be welding at. So you wanna have a clean surface to where you're welding at. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna come over here with the wire brush on the grinder, and I'm gonna clean up all of these edges here. It's from the seam sealer that they put on at the factory. You can see I kind of touched it up already right here and cut it off of there. This isn't really needed, and I'm going to be filling this seam again anyway. So that's really not needed. I'm gonna clean that all up around here, and it's just gonna make it a lot cleaner of a line. All right, so I got all the pieces taped up on here, everything kind of mocked up. Now there is a couple of areas where I still need to trim down. I'm guessing just with my template being made out of cardboard, cardboard kind of being more flexible and everything, it didn't translate exactly how I planned to the metal. But that's just the nature of doing custom work. I'm not a professional in this sort of any means, but I'm a real avid do-it-yourselfer, and have faith that I can figure it out. But like I said, it's not far off. There's just a couple of areas, like right in here, I need to cut this plate down just a little bit. Right in this area, I need to trim back this top just a little bit to make all this sit a little flusher with this. And then in return, that's also kind of messing with down here. It's pushing this back and this forward a little bit. So it's really just those two main areas, just right in here and right in here. So I'm just gonna kind of mark it with my Sharpie, kind of how I think I need to shave it down just that little bit, and just move from there. And it might take a couple of tries, but I'm just gonna try to get that fitting, pretty nice. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are welding it together, and that weld will fill in some of the small gaps. But we do want to have it pretty close and make sure that everything fits nicely before we start welding anything together. So I got everything pretty much touched up now, trimmed everything up. I had to kind of trim up right here, had to trim the top of this plate a little bit, had to get this gap better. But I'm pretty satisfied with how everything's sitting right now. The only thing I do have to do is I have to still mess with this plate a little bit. There's a bolt that's welded on to the back of this right now that I'm actually not going to need anymore. So I'm going to be cutting that off of there, and that's going to allow for this plate to sit flush and for me to better kind of fit that plate. I believe that bolt was like the washer fluid reservoir, but I haven't had that for a long time. So I'm going to be filling that, cutting that off, and then I'll be able to get this fitted correctly. And then this plate back here, I just have to, once I take this back off, I have to just bang this flat, bang that flat with a hammer so that this plate can sit up there properly. But I think that'll fit just right once that's hit back. All right, so I got everything fitted up to my satisfaction. This one was a real pain, really, especially trying to get this curve, seeing that this part kind of curves out. I ended up having to like trim this back smaller than what I had it, and kind of bang it in with a hammer so that I can match that curve. The tape's not really holding it exactly perfect, but once it gets tacked in there, it's gonna sit just right. So what I'm gonna go around and do now with my Sharpie is I'm going to mark around everywhere where it's gonna make contact with the body. I'm gonna make a mark everywhere. And this is so, once I take these plates back off, I'm gonna sand down the frame right in those areas so that I have a good contact patch for when I start welding. I'm also gonna go ahead and prime the areas beyond that, just to make sure that there's not any possibilities of rust under there. I'm also gonna go ahead and prime the backs of all of these plates. All right, so I got all the areas sanded down everywhere where I'm gonna be making contact with my welder. So I got, all of that in. So I'm just gonna go back now and wipe all this down with some degreaser, and then I'm gonna hit it with the primer, and I'm just gonna take like a piece of cardboard and kind of, like block off these areas that I just covered up while I'm spraying the primer. So I'm just getting primer, into these areas I'm not gonna weld on, just to make sure that those areas don't rust. All right, you can see I went ahead and primed everything up. Like I said, I'm just leaving the areas that I'm gonna be welding to nice and clean. I also went ahead and took off the fender just so I won't have any splatter, and I'm gonna have to have it off later on anyway. I went ahead and, primed the back side of these plates, still leaving the arrows on the front of them so that I can tell, where everything goes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tape everything into place and then move on from there. All right, so I got everything pretty much taped up. I didn't put this one plate on over here because I wanted to get this section exactly where it needed to be, because I'm actually gonna have to take this back off to weld this piece on before these get welded on so that this gets contact to the body. So I'm just gonna take these two back off now that I know that these are in proper place, and I'm gonna go ahead and tack this whole section together. All right, so I got everything prepped up, cleaned off, and I'm ready to start tacking it into place, putting small beads of weld just to hold everything in place. I do wanna go ahead and put a disclaimer out there. I'm not a welding professional. I've never even really welded before. So other than over on my table, I took some of my scrap pieces and kind of played around and welded things together. But this is gonna be my first project ever trying to fabricate or weld anything. So I just went and got a little cheap Harbor Freight welder, a Chicago Electric welder, and make sure that you get a dimming mask, and I'm just gonna go for it. I mean, the worst that's happen is I start over. But I feel like it's pretty simple. Just take your time, don't try to rush it, and try to make it happen. So I'm gonna put you guys on the time lapse and tack this one area in together. Oh yeah, and you also always wanna have a fire extinguisher close, because things can go bad, and we don't want that. All right, got it all tacked in place. It's there. It's not gonna go anywhere. These aren't the prettiest looking welds by any means, but the good thing about what I'm doing is you know, none of the welds at the end are going to be exposed. So the welds are just to create the structure in between all of the plates, and then it's going to get grounded back down, and then it's going to get filled over with Bondo. So, you know, this is a very forgiving process that I'm doing. So now I'm gonna tack this in a little bit more before I put the other plates in, to make sure that that's, you know, 100% good before I move forward. I do want to note that you can see how these it kind of leaves this residue around it, and that's just the nature of the type of welder that I got. It is a cheaper one. It's a flux welder, so it doesn't use any gases or anything like that. So that just kind of happens. But what you can do is you can take a wire brush. You know, you can take like a wire brush, or you can take one of the wheels and just clean that up. And you're gonna want to clean that up before you try to weld back it over any of those spots. All right, so I got that piece tacked in good on the bottom side, and as you see, you know, I got all these other pieces tacked in now. So what I'm actually having to do, seeing that this metal is so thin, this is a 16 gauge metal, and you know what's factory on the body of this car is even thinner than that. I'm not quite sure exactly what gauge it is, but with the kind of cheaper welder that I have, in combination with this kind of being such a thin sheet metal, I'm actually gonna have to go around and do tack welds just like this and kind of just work my way around, because if I actually tried to put a bead down all the way through this, it actually starts to melt, and it like starts burning a hole into the metal, especially when I'm doing it on, you know, the actual body panels. It's not as bad when I'm doing it to itself, because this metal is a little bit thicker, but so it's going to take a little bit longer. As you see, I've been working on putting tacks all over the place. But now I'm gonna go ahead with my flappy disc, and I'm just gonna sand all of this down and try my best to get it all as smooth as I can right now. Especially right here, there's actually a little lip right here. So I'm gonna kind of take all that back some and smooth all of this out. I got some of the areas, you know, grinded down real good. Like right through here, it looks pretty good. There's still a couple areas I'm gonna touch up, but it looks pretty good. You know, same with here. So I got into some of these corners a little bit, but it really started to kill my flappy disc. So I really need like a grinding wheel, one of like the fat grinding wheels that can kind of get into that corner and really do work in there. I thought I had one around here, but I couldn't really find it. So for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and just keep tacking these areas together that I could tell I need more, especially over here. I forgot to mention earlier, somehow from me translating this from cardboard to metal, this area here actually got pushed in a little bit more, so my headlight wasn't clearing to go on. So I actually heated this whole area up with a torch and banged it out, and kind of did that process maybe like 3 times and got it banged out enough to where it's a nice angle, it doesn't look too bad, and the headlight will fit. But in the process of doing that, I did bang some of those welds free. So that was another good thing about sanding this down. You know, I can now see what's actually holding and go back and fill in. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and fill in a lot of these holes I just sanded out for now, and in the morning I'll go to the hardware store and get a new grinding wheel, and I'm gonna have to get some more floppy disk as well. This morning I went and got a grinding wheel, and I went ahead and grinded everything down. Not all the way, but just to make it more clear where I still need to weld some at. And you know, like I said, some of these areas are looking really good. I touched both of these areas up some more. But you know, I was able to get into these corners now, so you can see where I still need to do better all through here. So I'm just gonna work on that, filling in these welds some more, and then go back to grinding it down. All right, so I went back over this side again, added more weld, grinded it back down. It still needs some more work, but I'm gonna kind of take a break from the grinding and welding, and I'm gonna start to work on this side. It's the same process, starting with making my cardboard templates, figuring out exactly how I'm gonna do it, then transferring that to metal and so on. So I'm gonna get started over here. So this is how I got this side all mocked up. I like how it came out. You know, right here is gonna be a bend. So I'm gonna have to like tack, once I make this into metal, I'm gonna have to tack it in up here and kind of hit it down and shape it. Probably have to heat it up with my torch as well. But that's what was necessary to get it on the same plane, because this is where the motor mount goes for this side, and I wanted that to sit flush with everything else, so it just looks smooth, so that'll be one smooth surface. So it came out good. As I was talking about before, you know, I'm gonna relocate my terminals that provide me access to the battery. I was talking about doing it up here before, actually I think I'm gonna put it on this plate right here. So I'll end up putting the two terminals and the cutoff switch, so it'll be able to kill my battery. And that'll go right here, probably just 3 across from each other. And yeah, so now that I got this side mocked up, I'm gonna switch back over to the other side. I'm gonna continue to fill in some of my weld spots where there's just a little bit of weld that needs to be added, kind of grind it back down again. I am gonna have to borrow my father's Dremel and get into these corners, because seeing that I have the grinding wheel, I can't quite get all the way into the corners to grind these smooth. So I'm gonna get that Dremel tool so that I can get into some of these corners that I'm having issues with. But other than that, I'm just gonna keep welding for now, grind it back down, and should have this side pretty well off today, maybe just not the corners. All right, so I got this side welded up some more, all grinded back down. It still needs some more work here and there, but for now, I'm pretty satisfied. I did start to try to weld over some of these open holes, kind of like these. So that was my attempt at it there. It's going pretty well. I thought it was gonna be a little bit easier than what it is, but I mean, it's all fabrication, so just gotta figure it out. But these two look pretty good. You can see this one still has a hole in it, so I have to fill that in some more. All right, so that's where I'm gonna end this video. On the next video, it'll be more of me finishing the other side, as well as patching up some of these holes. I also have to pull my dash out so that I can take the heater core out, and so I'm able to patch up these holes here and put, well, not this one because that's for the wiring harness, but this is for the AC, it's for the heater core. So I'm gonna remove the whole AC unit from inside, the whole heater core, so that I can put a plate on the back of this. But that'll be all in the next video, as well as me cutting those plates out and getting that side matched to this side. But I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and just stay tuned. I got a bunch more stuff coming for this car. This is just the very beginning of the build. This is the rough process. But yeah, if you haven't already, go back and watch the first video. That's just a tour over my car, kind of how it sits as it is before I started any of the work. But yeah, just stay up to date. Make sure you hit that bell. See you.